We've picked out key topics which we usually receive a number of queries about. For each point, I will provide a quick summary and we will then pause to allow time for you to type any questions you have on the topic via the chat facility. We'll also send out a follow-up email with key links to our application guidance and useful links and documentation. So the deadline for applications is Wednesday, the 5th of February at 11 AM UK time or 12 Brussels time. It's really important to submit your application well in advance of this deadline. We cannot accept late applications. Anything submitted after the 11 AM UK time will be considered late and ineligible. Considering that this deadline is applicable to all sectors of the Erasmus Plus programme, the UK National Agency will be extremely busy in the lead up to this day. By submitting early, you allow yourself enough time to contact us and for us to have time to support you in rectifying any problem. Please do not leave it until the last minute to submit your application. We will now go on to looking at planning your project. It's important to make sure that your application is relevant to your own organisation and to the needs of your organisation, or if you are applying as a consortium, to the schools in the consortium. It's also very important to make sure that your applications show how your project is linked to the Erasmus Plus priorities and objectives for Key Action 1. Therefore, schools need to be more explicitly link their own needs to the Erasmus Plus priorities at the planning stage. On the screen now are some examples. I'm going to read all of the objectives out, but for further information, please refer to pages 27 of the 2020 programme guide. I would highly recommend that you familiarise yourself with the aims and ensure that your project meets one or some of the aims. Erasmus Plus supports learning mobility of staff that is framed within the European Development Plan for the sending organisation aimed at modernising and internationalising their mission. Assessors are looking for you to frame your project within a European Development Plan, and they're also looking for you to clearly detail how your project responds to staff development needs which have been identified. It does not need to be complicated. The European Development Plan is not something that your school will necessarily have in place already, but it's something that must be considered and developed before applying. The purpose of the European Development Plan is to ensure that the planned activities of the proposed Erasmus Plus project are relevant both for the individual participants and for the organisation as a whole, as they will have a higher impact on the quality of teaching and learning if they are well integrated into the organisation's strategic development. You will be asked in the application form to provide a strategic view of your organisation or consortium plans for European activities. The consortia need to have a strategic approach and present one European development plan to all of the consortium partners. In this case, you must stipulate how the project will be relevant to each individual school in the consortia. Here are some things you should consider before applying. What are the needs of your school or consortium of schools in terms of quality development and internationalisation? These needs could relate to the following: management competencies, staff competencies, etc. How will your schools or schools in the consortium planned Erasmus Plus activities contribute to meeting these needs? What impact is expected on pupils, teachers and other staff, and on the schools overall as a result of the Erasmus Plus project and European activities? How will your school or schools in the consortium integrate the competencies and experiences acquired by staff into their curriculum and or the school development plan? How will the school or the schools in the consortium use e-twinning in connection with the planned Erasmus Plus project and mobility activities? So we're just going to launch into a new poll so we can gather who we've got on today. Can I just ask you, have you read the Key Action 1 Schools Assessment Criteria? And we'll just give you a minute to answer this. Thank you. Thank you for that. So that was 56% of you said that you'd read the school's assessment criteria. I would suggest reading that as soon as possible because it is really important to being successful in your funding that you know what the criteria is. Another important tip before applying for funding is to understand how your project will be assessed. You will then be able to ensure that your proposal meets the assessor requirements. To be considered for funding, proposals must score at least 60 points. Furthermore, they must score at least half of the maximum points in each of the categories of award criteria mentioned above, i.e. 15 points for the categories relevance to the project and impact and dissemination, 20 points for the category quality of the project design and implementation. When completing your application form, provide as much detail as possible and make everything obvious to the external expert who will be assessing your application. You need to explicitly state things rather than suggest or presume the assessor will know things about your school or project. To review the award criteria for Key Action 101, please review page 64 of the Erasmus Programme Guide. You will be asked in the application form whether you're planning on using some tools in connection with your mobility, and these tools are eTwinning, School Education Gateway, and eParley. There are 3 tools which can help you find which are most relevant to the Erasmus Plus. This is a course catalogue which you can use to find courses for your Key Action 1 projects. There's also a section on mobility opportunities, which includes information on teaching assignments and job shadowing offers. There's a strategic partnership section, which may be of interest to you, which you can use to connect to different partners. This section is aimed at Erasmus Plus Key Action 2 projects. On to eTwinning. This is a free online community for schools in Europe, which allows you to find partners and collaborate on projects. eTwinning is active in over 43 countries and 25 languages. Over 300,000 teachers are registered on eTwinning. There's no application process and it's a safe environment to help you find partners. eTwinning complements Erasmus Plus extremely well, and you will be asked to comment on this in your application form. You can use eTwinning to start to collaborate and grow and extend your school project. You can also use it to prepare outgoing staff as a tool for impact and dissemination. If you're planning on using these tools, it's important to comment on how you plan to use them and what value they are bringing to the project. We will now pause for 2 minutes, so if you have any questions on the topics we've just covered, please ask on the chat facility. Thank you. Now we will look at preparing to apply and some practical things you need to have in place before completing the application form. So please note that an organisation ID has replaced the PIC as a unique identifier for an organisation to apply. So for those of you that have a PIC number, this will have replaced it. Organisations that have a PIC and applied for funding previously through the national agency have automatically been assigned an organisation ID. You can use the organisation registration system via the link on this slide to check an organisation ID, as well as change some of the information linked to it. If you haven't made an application before and do not have an organisation ID, don't worry. You can also use the organisation registration system to register a new organisation. We will now look at funding categories available to you under Key Action 101. For full information regarding budget categories, please refer to pages 68 to 69 of the 2020 Erasmus Plus Programme Guide. Once we have gone through the budget categories, we will then take a look at the application form itself and the different sections of the form that you need to complete before you can submit your application. Okay, so as you can see here on the screen, here are the budget categories available to you under Key Action 101. Travel. This covers return costs of participants, including, if required, any accompanying persons. Course fees. These are unit costs and capped at €70 per day. Individual support. Again, unit costs for the subsistence of participants, including accompanying persons. We have special needs support. These are based on actual costs and are directly related to participants with disabilities and their accompanying persons. So if you're applying for this budget category, full justification will be needed for the funding you're applying for, as well as an estimate of how much funding you will need. Organisational support relates to the implementation of mobility activities, for example, preparation, monitoring, validation of learning outcomes and dissemination. We're now going to look at completing the application form.
Bear with us just a moment as we try and find the right screen.
Great, so hopefully you will see the Erasmus Plus application form on the screen. I'm going to have a look at the application form itself before you apply. So I mentioned earlier, you will need to have obtained an organisation ID, previously known as a PIC. For more information on how to obtain an organisation ID, please refer to the guidance documents on our website. I would recommend this, which also gives you more detail on how to complete the various stages of the application form. I will also make sure that you have the 2020 Erasmus Plus Programme Guide with you as a reference point. This will make sure you're applying for the right things. So onto the form itself. Just a few details to bear in mind before we get started. The form will automatically save every 2 seconds, and you must remain online the entire time you're completing the form, as it's an online form. On the left, you can see the various stages of the application form you'll need to complete. I've gone through and completed a few of these sections just to give you an example. And as you can see, these indicators here in the shape of green ticks to show me where I've completed a section. You can then move to the next section. If there's a red triangle next to the section, there's either some information missing or there's been some sort of breach of the application form rules. So this will need to be completed or edited before moving on. This section is mandatory to complete, as you can see here. So the first section here is context. You'll need to enter your project title and start date. By selecting that field, you can see it's given us the calendar that's relevant to my application. So a school's mobility project can last from 12 to 24 months, and the project start date must be between June the 1st, 2020 and the 31st of December. As you can see, I've selected June the 1st. And now you can see it's given me an end date to my project. Then you simply select your language, which in this case is English. Scroll down. You will need to select your national agency, which would be UK01 British Council in this case. We will now select participation organisations as detailed on the left-hand side. The first question we come to is, are you applying as part of a consortium? Under this key action, you can apply as part of a consortium, but I will come back to that question in a bit. As part of this key action, if you've applied before, then you will be used to using a PIC. However, this system has completely changed this year, as previously mentioned, and everyone applying will need to obtain an organisation ID on the organisation registration system. Detailed information is available on our website.
You can also see here as well, just a quick link to the actual organisation registration system. So you've already got access to the application form. So the second one down here, we've got participating organisations. Scroll down a little bit. You can see there's an actual direct link right here to the organisation registration system, or the ORS as it's more commonly known. Okay.
Thanks, Sean. So now we're on to associated persons. This will be your legal representative and contact person. The legal rep will be the authorised person from your organisation who will be able to sign documentation such as your individual grant agreement. Your contact person will be the person who the national agency would predominantly be in touch with, and vice versa. This would normally be people we could contact throughout the year, not just during term time. If at any stage during your application or project, your legal rep or named contact person changes, you must get in touch with the national agency immediately to advise, and we can then update the relevant details for you. We can only speak to a legal representative or named contact person regarding an application or project. So it's very important this information is kept up to date. If you want more than one contact person, this is fine, but you will have to note who is your preferred contact person, and this would be the national agency's first port of call if we need to get in touch with you. We will now complete the legal representative, and we will just select this icon on the right-hand side. I will make sure this now, I will enter this now. As you can see, the red sections indicate mandatory. Make sure all the information is correct. If you want more than one contact person, you can do so also. For any stages, you can go back to the application as indicated here. Once you've completed all these details, they should all go green. For hosting organisations, you will need to add your partner's organisation OD as well. This is a demonstration. I've already entered these. You will add as many as appropriate to your organisation. Once you're happy with all the initial details are complete, we'll then start making your way through the different sections down the left-hand side. I would now like to just go back to this consortium question. So I'll just select yes. Everyone in your consortium will have an OID, and you will need to enter the OID numbers. It will be exactly the same process as for your own organisation. Complete all mandatory sections. The European Development Plan, at the bottom of this page, you will need to select the relevant topics addressed by your project. So I've selected up to 3. The list is quite extensive, so make sure you're being really accurate in terms of the themes addressed. This is an important part of the application as it forms the basis to build on your project proposals. I would refer to our guidance for help with these sections. Now on to project management. Again, narrative sections you need to go through and complete. For any narrative sections, please ensure you're given as much detail as possibly can, and do not assume the assessor has knowledge on any aspects of your application.
So essentially, if you're 50-50 as to whether to put a particular detail in about your project, just go for it. Don't leave any stone unturned in that sense in terms of the detail you're actually inputting.
Next, activities. Under this particular key action, you have the option of teaching assignments, structured courses abroad, job shadowing. What you need to do is follow through the sections, complete the narrative, and then we can add what activities we want to complete as part of this project. As you can see, when I enter some information, the total is worked out automatically by the number of participants requiring a grant and the type of activity. You then need to click on the selected activity to enter further details.
Which I've just done now. So the activity I've clicked on is job shadowing here. Individual
support. Again, you have different groups that determine how much grant is calculated. Again, this is a case of working your way through and making sure you're being as accurate as possible. Again, I have entered as an example. As you can see, this calculates per participant. Just work your way through wherever is appropriate for your proposal. Travel. By clicking on the link provided, this will take you to the distance travel calculator. This is where you need to input your starting point of the activity and the return point, which will give you the correct distance band you'll need to apply for. This is the tool you will need to use rather than Google. Now on to course fees. Course fees will show you if you've selected structured training, but not necessarily if you've selected another activity. So don't worry if this is not on your form. Participants. Again, this section starts with some narrative entries, and then you're selecting the number of participants who require accompanying persons. Then just continue to complete these fairly simple questions until all necessary fields are green. Now on to special needs support. As mentioned earlier, these are costs directly related to participants with special needs. You'll need to enter the amount of participants, the justification, and the amount you're applying for. You can add more special costs by simply clicking Add and repeating the process. Follow-up is another narrative section you'll need to complete, and I'll scroll through now. Budget summary. This is important to look at this thoroughly, as this is your chance to review the information you've entered up to this point to ensure that every financial aspect of your project has been considered. The budget summary is broken down into activity type to make this easier to review thoroughly. We always recommend reviewing to make sure you have applied for everything required for your proposal. On the left-hand side, the budget summary is followed by the project summary. Complete the initial details based on the info you've input at the start of your application. If you're applying as part of a consortium, then all your partners' information will show and should be reviewed at this stage. We will go back to the top of the form now to see what we have or haven't completed. As you can see, these are highlighted by a red triangle. Make your way through the form until they go green before submitting. As I'm not going to submit this form as it's a test. So ensure under your budget summary, this matches what you want to apply for. You then go through to the annexes. At this stage, please download the Declaration of Honour. This needs to be signed by your organisation's legal representative once they've read through it and checked they're happy with it. It needs to be an original wet signature. Please make sure that you complete all of the sections on the Declaration of Honour itself. Now on display is the Declaration of Honour form. If at any stage you're unsure of its aspect of its completion, please do contact the national agency. Where it says place on the Declaration of Honour, this should be the town that the organisation is in, i.e. Cardiff. National ID. If your organisation does have a national ID, please enter this. If it doesn't, you can leave this blank. The same applies for the stamp. If you don't have a stamp, please just write no stamp. Once you've completed the Declaration of Honour, you'll then need to select Add Declaration of Honour. You'll then need to add any relevant support and documentation, i.e. if you're applying as part of a consortium, you'll need to download the provided mandates which will be completed by all the participating partner organisations before being uploaded to the application itself. Again, please refer to our written guidance for more details on what support and documentation is needed. As you can see, you can actually download a PDF copy of your application on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. We really recommend that you do this. It's really good practice in terms of checking the information you've inputted, and if you are successful, it's always good to refer back to your original application as part of your ongoing project management. Of course, if you've applied as part of a consortium, it's good practice to share copies of the application with all relevant participants. You can share your application here. You will need to enter the details of who you want to share with and the level of access you want them to have. Finally, we have an application checklist, so please take your time to make sure you're happy with everything before ticking the boxes, including the data protection box. And that's it. You're now ready to submit your 2020 Key Action 101 Erasmus Plus project application. If you do have any queries, please get in touch as soon as possible, and we'll get extremely busy closer to the deadline. Just one reminder that you can start your application as it saves after every 2 seconds, and you can also go back and amend it, and the application, the latest one, on the deadline date of the 5th of February will be the one that is reviewed. We will now pause for 2 minutes to give you the opportunity to ask any more questions through the chat facility. Thank you. Thank you for that. Hopefully you had answers for your questions. So now we will cover some hot topics. So the things you need to do before downloading and beginning to complete the application form. On to impact. Impact assessment is an essential part of the Erasmus Plus project as it evaluates achievement and generates recommendations for future improvements. The Erasmus Plus programme has clear objectives and desired outcomes ever since the global economic crisis in 2008, when public sector finances in member states across Europe have been under pressure. It is therefore extremely vital that we all demonstrate the purpose and value of money for public spending. For your school staff mobility projects, some of the outcomes which you might produce could be improved competencies, which are linked to your professional profiles, better quality of your work and activities in favour of pupils, greater understanding and responsiveness to social, linguistic and cultural diversity. Improved foreign language competencies are another one also. On the screen now is a table which helps start you thinking about the results you can measure for your project. Results of a project may be of a diverse nature and consist of both tangible and intangible results. In order to disseminate effectively and measure your results, it is recommended to document them. You could use interviews, questionnaires, tests, and observations to record your results. We're now going to look at how you can share your success and disseminate your project results. The first place you're able to share your success is in-house and at your organisations. You can share best practice with other members of staff and share knowledge and new experiences. On the screen is a list of examples of how you can share your experiences. Now we have a diagram which shows the ripple effect on how Erasmus Plus project can have an effect on more than one person. So you have a teacher who goes to job shadow a teacher in France. On their return, other members of staff in the school and department receive best practice from the teacher who undertook the training. Then teachers from other local schools job shadow the teacher upon return from France, and then on the extreme side of the spectrum, in the future, teachers from other EU countries may apply for EU funding to come and job shadow the UK school. You could use websites such as the School Education Gateway to advertise your school, to host other teachers. It's a great way of internationalising your school without having to reapply for funding. The teacher visiting would apply for their own money to visit you. So now on to dissemination. The most important thing to remember is to disseminate effectively. Have a plan. 6 questions to remember are: why are you disseminating? What are you disseminating? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? Whom are you going to do it to, and where? You should have referred to your dissemination plan in your application and related this to the impact of your project and deliverables. During Erasmus Plus project results platform, continue to update this during your project and continue relevant media. Inform people, newsletters, articles, reports. After the project, on the results platform, case studies can contact us and we can upload these for you on our website. We will now pause for 2 minutes. So if you have any questions on this topic we have just covered, please ask questions facility away and by the chat facility, and we'll select some of them to review. Thank you for that. So now we will cover some topics. So the things you need to do before downloading and beginning to complete the application form. We recommend that you sign up for our newsletter and keep yourself up to date with any news, deadlines and events. You can also follow us on the following media channels. So we're on Twitter, Facebook, there are various pages on YouTube which you will find most useful. Please also make a note of the telephone number and email address you now see on your screen if you need to contact us. The helpline is open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5:30. We will now ask you to complete a final poll with regards to feedback from the webinar today, which we value for future events. Thank you. Just to advise today, the application system will be down offline from 4 until 5:30 for maintenance. So if you were thinking of going on to use the system straight after this webinar, then just to advise you, that's just a one-off update. I would just like to thank you all for attending the webinar today and wish you good luck with the application for Erasmus Plus funding. This is the end of the webinar, but we will be available online on the chat facility for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you and good luck.
Thanks, good luck everyone, bye-bye.